Hi everyone, my name is Richard Taylor with Get Aboutable. Good afternoon. Today is the 24th of March if you're watching the recording, and I'd like to introduce three guests we've got for you today. First of all, I'll start with you, Matthew Townsend. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, thank you.
Welcome. And Fiona McIntosh, hi.
Hello.
Hi Fiona. And finally from India we've got Aradhana Lal. We're going to call you Al today, aren't we?
Yes, that's
Yes.
my nickname. That's right.
Who are you and what do you do? It's a nice simple question. So let's start with you, Fiona. Could we just get some very basic background on what
Sure.
you do
Sure.
for your living?
No worries. So I'm Fiona McIntosh, and I'm the School to Work coordinator with Imagine More. We're a very small organisation that builds the capacity of families to help their sons and daughters achieve the good things in life.
That was very brief. You could take a bit longer if you'd like to. Well, we're going to go into how you do that, aren't we?
We shall.
Okay. And Al.
So my name is Al. My Indian name is Aradhana, which is a long, difficult one. I work with Lemon Tree Hotels. We are a hotel company in India in the 3-star and 4-star space. We have just under 100 hotels across India, and we also happen to be in Dubai and in Bhutan, just for your information. I head sustainability and ESG, environment, social, and governance aspects for the company. And we're going to talk about our diversity work shortly.
Okay, terrific. And finally, Matthew.
I'm Matthew Townsend. I'm the founder and the CEO of Nation Freedom. We're an organisation helping people with disability, social inclusion in the outdoors and nature-based activity. We're based in and around Brisbane, the Southeast Queensland region. What I do is about creating that opportunity for young people to go out and enjoy, to be bushwalking, kayaking, to enjoy what they like to feel safe and enjoyable.
Fiona, can we hear more about Imagine More?
Sure. So I've got some slides that go along with this presentation. Should I?
I'm
share
allowing
them
you
on
to
my
share.
end? Feel that?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for having us on this panel. This is a real honour to be able to talk about both the employment of people with intellectual disability and an approach called customised employment. And really this talk today is about how that approach can benefit businesses. So I mentioned before, we're a small agency. Our mission, our vision, is of a community where everyone is included, valued, and contributing in meaningful roles. So my project is funded to support families of students who are in high school to be able to create employment opportunities and self-employment opportunities using a method called customised employment. So we really work with families kind of in one-to-one peer groups and also through webinars. So we're located here in Canberra, Australia, which is Ngunnawal country. And the material that I'm going to be talking to you about today has been adapted from an organisation called Mark Gold and Associates, who are based in the US, and they are pioneers of this particular approach, which has been around for about 40 years. So essentially, if you think about how or what customised employment is compared to other traditional approaches. So traditionally, there are job vacancies that are advertised by an organisation. Some people are eligible for support in terms of accessing those particular vacancies. But for many people who we support, that is people with intellectual disability, or the families of people with intellectual disability, are often excluded from the labour market because of the approaches that are used in terms of competitive approaches and comparative approaches that compare one person's ability against another. So customised employment is more about, it's a process that starts with the person, and they go in with support, approach employers who have been identified as a potential good match for that person's interests skills and needs. So it's really about a match between the specific skills offered by a job seeker that meets a particular area of benefit to employers. What I'm going to show you now is a very quick video on a young woman called Annie who has a role in her family business, which is a chestnut roasting business. So customised employment is about both employment and self-employment as well. And this gives you a really good sense of how something can be modified so that the person with disability gets the most and can contribute at their best within a business.
I started business. My mum asked me. She had a great idea, and I said yes. It's about my grandpa. He was a farmer. He really happy to sell chestnuts.
So the business is a chestnut roasting van. We roast fresh chestnuts from our family farm. They're grown at Batlow on trees that are 25 years old. They're harvested by our family and we sell them at a farmer's market, freshly roasted. They're delicious. The chestnut roasting itself is a seasonal business. It operates from April through to August. There's nothing more important in the whole world to Annie than her family, and this ticked all the boxes. We looked at the business processes around the van. We looked at how we packaged up the chestnuts, how we could make it so it was easier for Annie to do. We looked at the sales. It was predominantly cash sales in the van historically. We knew that EFTPOS was easier for Annie, so we had to go and look at what sort of point of sale system we would use using EFTPOS and to sort of set that up and then to learn how to use it. So we really looked at all of the aspects of the business and then modified those so that they were more appropriate to Annie's needs and to what she could do, knowing that at the beginning she'd need a fair bit of support to do most of the roles, but then in time she should be able to do all of them.
I cut chestnuts. We do it every Fridays. We always listen to music when we do it, and I had fun. We weigh it and then he put in a bag and then we take it to our business. Me and my auntie Tracy, we sell chestnuts together. We do samples and then we give everyone a try. I said to them how much and then I get cash, I card.
My role working with Annie is to mentor her with her business. My main strategy to support Annie was to make everything fun, because she was really excited about the business and I wanted to maintain that excitement. To help Annie learn the money skills, we played a lot of money games like Zingo, and we also did role plays because Annie's studying drama and loves it. So I decided to make chestnuts fun by making a playlist. So we have a special Annie playlist on my phone. We did 2 online courses. We did the I'm Alert food safety. The food handling certificate had a lot of reading, so we broke it down into manageable chunks. She was so capable of it and I was so proud of her for doing all this hard work.
When you start a business, it's really important to make sure that you have all of the regulatory aspects of the business in order. You have to work out what type of structure you want to operate in, registrations and licenses you need. We were aware that we would need to get a food license, and we then had to acquire skills to be able to operate that business. There's great information out there on the business.gov.au. It has really helpful step-by-step instructions on how to start a business. Made sure we had public liability insurance, workers' comp. The business is already a success because of what Annie's got out of it. With each week it gets easier. As you sort of tick off the list of business aspects to get up and running, then that's done, it's sorted. And then you can move on to the next thing. If she chooses to go into it and do more next year, fabulous. If she gets a job and she decides she wants to do something else, great.
I'm really happy and I like it. It's really fun.
Look, that was a really great example. The things I kind of just wanted to bring your attention to there was that it was developed around her interests. So she's got a really great way of interacting with people. She's very good at asking questions, and so she's able to kind of keep conversations going. And so a customer facing role is something that really she's driven to do. And so when somebody has intrinsic motivation, that helps people learn new tasks on the job and to kind of expand their skill set. You can see there they really change things to suit her needs. So things like, the financial aspects in terms of the way that she learnt things, or, using kind of FPOS as opposed to cash transactions. And their intention is that she'll eventually take on all the roles in the business. So often what happens with people with intellectual disability is they're put into roles that have a couple of tasks in them, and then that's it. They don't expand their skill set. But we know that many people can learn with the right support. And I guess that's something to kind of consider in business in terms of how that might also benefit your business over time. So this slide, I won't go into too much detail, but bring it up in the examples as we go. But we do have a whole bunch of resources with real stories about people in employment and self-employment if you're interested in learning more about this approach. So just to give you a very quick overview, there's in terms of the process that people go through before they even approach a potential employer, people typically spend about 40 hours in a process called discovery, which is really trying to understand the person, their interests, their needs, and their potential contributions or skills. So that's done through observations, through giving people opportunities to try different things, and it's a very thoughtful process because, and the reason why so much time is spent there, if there's a good match between a potential employer and what they need and the person, then that's more likely to lead to a successful job over time. What happens after discovery then is people then typically come together and they identify potential employers against each interest within their community who they might go and approach to find out more information about that workplace or the industry. And if that workplace or industry seems to be a fruitful thing to do, to go and actually make a presentation to an employer about customised employment. So it's at this point that people would typically go and find a representative. So that might be through a disability employment service. They might be, they may have NDIS funding, so National Disability Insurance Scheme funding. Many families, though, particularly we know for students in high school, don't have any access to any of these supports, so they are going out and finding the placements themselves. So in terms of then now going on to, so this is around benefit to employer. So once a person's hopefully engaged a job developer, that job developer could work with an employer to identify tasks within their organisation that might be appropriate for a person with disability. So the three most common kind of types of benefits that employers would see in terms of tasks would be unmet need tasks, so things that need to be done that aren't getting done. So for example, one of the young men on the slides before, he has a scanning and a slide business and does a bit of data entry. So most recently, he kind of did some input for survey feedback forms. So it was a job that the organisation couldn't get to, and it's just kind of those jobs that are on your continual to-do list. They're really great to have a look at, particularly starting point tasks for people. Also think about tasks for unbundling. So that's those tasks that are being done by highly paid professionals that could be better performed by somebody at an entry level. So an example of that is Gus at CSIRO cleaning the glassware for the scientists. And the other area is around strengthening operations. So that could be tasks that help the organisation to do their job better. So that would be new things that you might think about introducing to address problem areas that may have tasks that could be done for people. So I won't go through this in detail, but send out to Richard for resources that might be useful later on. This is a great kind of list of areas in thinking about, well, what tasks could possibly somebody with intellectual disability might be interested in doing. So just to finish up, so we encourage you to learn more about customised employment. There's lots of resources out there. I should have mentioned at the beginning, it has principles and practices that can be used by anybody. I've used it in my own life to find work, and there's lots of like self-guided discovery guides out there, that sort of thing. Also think about if you have the opportunity to create an opportunity for a person with intellectual disability, whether that's work experience, apprenticeships, ongoing work. Also thinking about, in terms of swapping traditional hiring methods. So it might be adjusting your interview. It might be accepting a visual resume that shows photos of the person doing jobs, so you can get a sense of their competence, as opposed to kind of a written resume, which doesn't always give that picture. Identify those values, tasks of value in your own organisation as potential areas of work. Be open to, in terms of finding these stories. We all have stories in our head about the capabilities of different people. And when it comes to people with intellectual disability, people often have low expectations, and that's informed by our culture. And that's also, often it's not it's a assumption that we have that we don't always question or always aware of. I'd encourage you to look at those new stories, those stories that are out there about the capabilities of people, and just become more informed. Be open to sharing industry information with others, whether that's, kind of family and friends. It might be making presentations to your local school or community about your industry. A lot of people have, unless they've worked in the industry, have no idea what goes on behind in an organisation. And so that's really helpful, I think, particularly for all young people who are looking for work. Be open to when employing people with intellectual disability, that they receive the typical workplace training and support that other people receive. And where that is a difference is the job support would support you and the co-workers in their role in terms of how they train the person. And we know that is better for the organisation, and it's better for the person long term. Images of competence is about, if you employ people and you're taking photos and using that in media or marketing or what have you, it's really good to show people doing jobs and looking competent in that job, because that changes attitudes towards people with intellectual disability about their competence. So the more that you can show competence as an organisation, the more that you help to elevate the status of all people with intellectual disability. Lastly, if you do support people, say in work experience or even for short periods of work, give detailed feedback when they leave that job about the jobs that they did. Often what happens is people talk about general personality traits, like they had a great work ethic, or they were a nice person, they were happy, had a good time, that's it. But it's so much more useful for the person for you to say what it was that they did and where they could do it independently, where they needed a bit of support. And finally, support any micro businesses that you're aware of who are owned by people with intellectual disability. Use them as contractors, as suppliers. Really support people in your community. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are welcome. Thank you. Al, you're a veteran of Get Aboutable webinars. You appeared at the ACAP conference last year, and that went down really well. And thank you for joining us again, because we know how busy you are, because you're at the opposite end of other people's spectrums, which is quite a large organisation, and you've got some things to talk about and something to show us. So please go ahead.
Okay, great. So just to say it again, we are based in India. Our company is called Lemon Tree Hotels. We are a regular hotel company, but the unusual thing that we do is we hire people with disability, and we've been doing this for about 15 years now. Our company is in its 20th year at this time, and this inclusion and diversity work has been on since 2007. So we've just hit 15 years on that. So I understood that at this webinar, the goal was to talk about how is it a staffing advantage? And I think Fiona shared some excellent points right now about how they assess and evaluate what are the kinds of roles that can be played in organizations and what are the kinds of roles a person with a specific disability can play. We do a lot of that work at Lemon Tree because that's the only way we can make it a part of our business model. And we call that process job mapping. I'll talk about it on one of the slides ahead. So many people ask us that why do you go for inclusion? Why do you hire people with disability? We have what we call a business sense or a logic to it. And these are the benefits that we see. Look at it from a business lens and also look at it from a nation building lens. When we talk of business, there are two ways of seeing it. One is from the employee benefits perspective, and the other is from the brand or the customer perspective. I'll tell you a little more about both of these. So employee benefits, the obvious one is that when we opened our doors to people with disability, we increased or we made the talent pool bigger. You know, in the hotel space, and I'm sure this must be true all over Asia and the whole world actually, the hotel sector normally hires people from hotel school and aviation school and so on, people who are trained and taught the whole concept of service and customer service and moments of truth and all of that. But we also observe that a lot of people in the hotel sector move quickly between company to company. There's a lot of movement. And attrition is usually quite high, whether it's hotels or restaurants or any kind of travel or hospitality business. So when we opened the doors to disabilities, suddenly we changed the game for ourselves. We made the talent pool bigger, which is a very good thing because it's hard to do recruitment otherwise. The creativity levels in the team have seen a wonderful increase. This is happening on account of the diversity. You know, imagine a person who's deaf, or imagine a person who's autistic, or someone who has Down syndrome. They are negotiating their life every day, given the special needs that they have. So sometimes there are some skills or certain observations or certain processes that they have, which are different from those of us who don't have that disability. And therefore, they bring creative solutions to the workplace. Things we may not have thought of is something that they come up with. And this is very, very powerful. Look at the topic of employee engagement. Now, why is employee engagement important? If you look at it for any of your organizations, no matter which business you're in, no matter whether you're running your own outfit, keeping your team members and your employees engaged is one of the most important items as a leader, as a person who runs your organization. And we have found that our inclusion work has made our employees and our managers more satisfied and more proud. How do we know this? We participate in a survey called the Great Place to Work survey. We've been doing it for about 15 years. So they have a qualitative survey they do with employees. And one of the questions they ask is, why do you keep working with Lemon Tree? They're asking this of people who've worked with us for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So the answer they receive is twofold. One is our people tell them that we grow very quickly in Lemon Tree. And of course you grow quickly because the company grows quickly, that's why. The second answer they give is our inclusion work makes us feel very satisfied and very proud because we are able to teach people and they are able to contribute in the workplace every day. And they feel proud of their own effort. And sometimes they are learning things from them. You know, it's a role reversal. So it's a really very fabulous way of building employee engagement. The last aspect from the employee lens is what's called reduced attrition. So really, you know, in the hotel sector, most companies will see in India, I don't know about the rest of the world, will see 50 to 60% attrition. That means more than half your employees will change before the year is out, you know. In the case of our employees with disability, this attrition is reduced to about 25 to 30%. Now, this is a great benefit because finding new talent, training them, getting them ready to be on the shop floor, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, no matter which sector you belong to. So if you can reduce attrition in your company through inclusion, it's a great outcome. Let's look at it from the customer's perspective. There are many customers who have heard about Lemon Tree, but they may not have tried us yet. One of the things they definitely hear about us is that we are a 3-star and a 4-star hotel category, and that we hire people with disability. They already know this. They've read about it in the media. They've heard about it on social media. So they say, hey, why not try out Lemon Tree and get to know how are they doing this? How are they including people with disability? Once they come and stay with us, it's our job to give them good service naturally. And this is whether you are a person with disability or without. You have to follow our standard operating procedures and you have to give good service. So they like it, they're comfortable, they're happy. And that builds their loyalty, which is why they return. Some of them make the effort to go tell their friends and colleagues and family, or might even go right on TripAdvisor or Booking.com to say, listen, we recommend Lemon Tree Hotel because it's got a competitive price, it's got all the features, and what's more, it hires people with disability, and the service they give is as good as the service as any other team member. What they notice is that the training we provide to these guys is so good that they are able to give the service very seamlessly. So they are willing to go and recommend us on public platforms also. Now, look at it as nation building. If people with disability are part of our society, and this is true of any country in the world, why should they not be part of the company? Because our company is part of our society as well. By doing this, we are giving an opportunity to those who normally don't get one or maybe have a lesser chance. And this is helping them live with dignity, independence, and self-reliance. It's a really powerful impact as a hotel company to have on your country. Those of you who don't know us, I think many of you may not know us because we are not in your countries. We are the fastest growing chain of upscale, mid-scale, and economy hotels. Today, we are 87 hotels in 54 cities. As I mentioned, this includes Dubai and Bhutan. About 8,500 rooms and 6,000 employees. We have become the third largest hotel chain in India right now by owned rooms. Let's look at the numbers of inclusion. We started this work in 2007. So before that, we had 0 employees with disability. Today, post the pandemic, these numbers were a little higher before the pandemic, but some of those guys had to leave because they didn't live in the city where our hotel was. They were staying in rented accommodation. So during the pandemic, things became difficult for their families and they had to go back to their homes. So we've lost out about 100 in each of these categories. So employees with disability today are 350 people. And the second category, we call it EcoSOC, which is really economically and socially marginalized. This includes people below poverty line. It includes orphans and abandoned children. It includes transgenders. It includes many people who have some other reason other than disability to be excluded from society. So that's another 250. So as a group, today we are at 10%. We call it opportunity deprived Indians, but you can even say opportunity deprived individuals, ODIs. We were, before the pandemic, we were as high as 16%. So we have had some losses actually, but we are very quickly recruiting again. We were on a recruitment freeze for 1.5 years because of the pandemic. The hotel sector was very deeply impacted. So we are recruiting again fresh. So in the next 2, 3, 4 months, we will bring back those numbers that we have lost. Take a look at our target. For FY26, we want to hit 30%. Now, this means many things. It means we have to know which disability types, we have to know which roles, the job mapping must be complete, all our training content must be planned, and the recruitment process has to be very tight because people do move on sometimes, and therefore you have to get new candidates in very quickly. So there's a lot of work to be done to get to this target in another 4 years. There's a model we have developed. I'll just touch upon this model. It includes the ideas that Fiona was presenting. So it's a 7-pillar model. The first one is that the idea of inclusion should come from the very top of the organization, which means in our case, our chairman and managing director believes that hiring people with disability and hiring people who are educationally marginalized is something that makes business sense for the reasons I shared earlier. We don't look at it as charity. We don't look at it as a CSR program. It is a HR program. It's a human resources program. It's part of the business model, and it's very front and center. It's part of the culture, in fact, at Lemon Tree over 15 years. So in any new organization, when you want to adopt inclusion, the person at the very top must believe that it is part of business model, and it needs to be cascaded to all function heads. You cannot say that this is a ESG task, or you cannot say this is an HR task. It is a business model. So therefore, any operating function or department, any business line or vertical, everyone has to understand the business sense. The second pillar is you need a dedicated resource. Like in Lemon Tree, this is my role, and also the role of an HR person. Because without that, planning initiatives, running pilots, all of that becomes very hard. The third aspect is sensitization. This is important. Just because the leadership team understands, that would be about 25 or 30 people, understand the business logic and the business sense, it doesn't mean all our 6,000 employees understand. So we have to conduct sensitization sessions and awareness sessions and make them aware of why the company is doing it, and also teach them about different disabilities. If they have to work with a deaf colleague, if they have to work with an autistic colleague, what do they need to do? How shall they provide the training to them? So we teach them all of this as well. Job mapping is what was discovered a little earlier by Fiona as well, which is you look at all the tasks to be done in a role. So look at a person who works in a coffee shop, or look at a person who works at the bell desk. What are all the tasks that person has to do? We have to observe it, and we do this along with our NGO partners or not-for-profit partners who understand disability. And then we will work out that which are the tasks that need to be eliminated from this person's job description. Then only we will decide how to move forward. So this job mapping takes several days, several hours to work on before we can decide. The fifth pillar is partnerships. I've already mentioned that we have NGO partners or not-for-profit partners, and these are people who work in the disability sector. They understand the whole space, and they know what's the best way to train them and work with them. So we need that support here. The sixth pillar is to run traineeships or pilots. It's good if a company is aggressive and says, we want to go forward, we want to hire all the disabilities, but you set yourself up for failure if you don't first run a small sample, run a pilot, run a traineeship, monitor it and review it. What you're trying to do is find out where the hurdles are, find out where the errors are taking place. Is it in the SOP? Is it in the training material? Do you need to do more sensitization of the team members, and so on? This will allow you to very easily go to the seventh pillar, which is scaling up. Scaling up as in make it national, make it a practice that runs throughout your company. It should not be a small little practice in one or two of your hotels, not like that. So this is the whole model. I can talk much more, but I won't do that right now. I'm going to just share a few photographs. It'll take a few seconds.
A question, just briefly, just a question that popped into my head.
Yes, please.
You talked about Pillar 5, developing partnerships, and that's, you might involve an organisation like Fiona's or similar. But you, by now, all these years later, you've developed so much expertise in-house as to what's needed in terms of employment. Is that to keep the company current with trends and changes in workplace culture?
There are three actually. The partnerships are with NGOs or the guys who work in the disability sector. So yes, it allows us to know new practices, current practices. The second role they play is they act as a recruitment firm for us, which means that they allow us and they help us to source candidates, which is very important. So some structure comes to the recruitment process. So they will pre-interview them, then they will send them to us, and it becomes a flow. The other aspect of partnerships is we are not partnering only with such specialists. We are also partnering with other companies. We're also partnering with organizations like Get About Able. I mean, this idea of sharing best practices, of sharing examples, learning from each other, this is also partnership. So we are talking about partnerships of all types, so that there is a sharing of knowledge, there is a sharing of examples, and you can learn from each other.
Sorry to interrupt you.
I'm going to show you a few pictures of our team members. These are our actual team members, and I'll tell you their role. I'll do it quickly, and then we'll if Richard can show the video after that. So this is a person who works in revenue management and distribution. She's a person who's an asset survivor. So you can see from her face and the way she wears her headscarf that she has been impacted and she has got a physical impact of that damage. What's good is her role keeps her busy with the phone, with the computer, and by doing some emails and stuff. So she doesn't have to face new customers every day, which is tough to do for a person who's an asset survivor. Here are two people who are autistic. The person on the left and right, both actually are in housekeeping. Now, what you'll notice is that they are doing tasks that look like they are very SOP driven, very structured and standardized. And these tasks are repetitive. Those of you who understand autism, you will know that it's a disability where it's not about your intellect. It's actually about your ability to engage socially with others. And there is a certain kind of predictability that you need. There's a certain kind of simplicity that you need. And a housekeeping role gives you that predictability and that simplicity, which is why it works very well. The person on the left is dusting. The person on the right is stacking up tea, coffee, milk, sugar, sachets in the room. So this task might be boring to another person, but to an autistic person, it's very well structured and predictable. So he feels comfortable doing it. These are our Down syndrome colleagues. They work in food and beverage service, which means in the coffee shop, the restaurant, and so on. Here is a person in finance. Now, I was talking about education earlier, saying that we also go for school dropouts. But there are some roles where you have to have a technical background. So finance, engineering, HR, etc. So in this case, this colleague who's wearing the hearing aid, so he's a person who has low hearing, he needs to have a commerce degree and understand finance and so on. So that is so. We will search a candidate like that. Here are colleagues with physical disabilities. The person on the left doesn't have a right arm. He's part of the front office. Here are colleagues who are deaf. They are in almost every department. So food and beverage service, uniform room, housekeeping, etc. And you will notice that they're using their hands. So they're actually talking in Indian Sign Language to the other person. So the chef is a hearing person, but we have taught Indian Sign Language to all our employees. You'll be very happy to know that 6,000 of us know English, we know Hindi, which is our national language, and we know Indian Sign Language. So we are experts in 3 languages. In Indian Sign Language, we're not experts. We might be a little bit amateurish, but we've all learned it. This is an integrated team, and that's me there in the middle. So you will see people, men and women, all different kinds of disability, people without disability. That's the idea of an integrated team. So that's the end of my presentation. If you could show the video at your end, Richard, then that would be great.
Yes.
जब ये छोटा था तो मुझे पता नहीं था कि ऑटिज्म होता क्या है। जैसे जैसे ये बड़ा होता गया मेरी टेंशन बढ़ती गई।
Person with autism has a difficulty in social and communication skills. If we see कि कितना अच्छे से वो डस्टिंग और सारा रूम बनाते हैं, बट वो रूम बनाने के पीछे जो चीज़ें होती हैं वो बहुत सी मेहनत की जाती है उनके साथ। जो भी एक टास्क है उसको SOP को भी बहुत छोटा छोटा ब्रेक करके और उसको सिखाना, एक मैनुअल, डिफरेंट मैनुअल बनाया जाता है।
जो कि नॉर्मल बच्चे नहीं कर पाते, ये इतना कॉन्फिडेंट हो गया कि मम्मा मैं हूँ आपके साथ, मैं करूँगा।
आई थिंक सो कोई भी इतना परफेक्टली काम नहीं कर सकता जितना वो कर रहा है घर में।
आज मैं गर्व फील करती हूँ कि ऐसा बच्चा मुझे मिला है।
So that just tells you the visual of what I was saying.
We want to take a different perspective on things. If you could tell us a little about your personal story.
Thank you for everyone for patient. If someone is looking forward to me at the end. Sorry, I'm Matthew from Brisbane. I'm the person with disability, and I have a big passion being out there, outdoors activities, and getting involved with environmental projects. So we're a part of an inclusive, accessible tourism sector here in Australia and in Queensland, and also part of a lot of mainstream peak body, especially Outdoors Queensland, and a few council environmental agency, and had a bit of a recreational sector. So we're heavily involved with the tourism, indigenous cultural experiences, and all that adventure, multi-day adventure activity. So I want to give you a start. Where did it come from? So I grew up living in the countryside of northern New South Wales. So I found my passion getting involved in recreational camps for people with hearing loss when I was around 10 years old. And that's where I started doing some rock climbing, bushwalking, kayaking, canoeing, and all a bit of bush tucker sort of engagement over the years. So that's what I got involved with, the passion about environmental sciences area. So yeah, it was really fun, and it's fun looking back to see what I've experienced. So challenges and barriers, it's also the part of the journey. So especially for the individual with disability. So like a lot of communication challenges, social challenges, making friends, building a relationship with people, especially the autism and hearing loss. So you can see that the big picture about the problem we try to address in the community and engagement around inclusion, and then also the employment. So we're looking at the snapshot where Australia we're really, really poor for the most of the developed country in the world currently around employment, people with disability. and there's a lot of prejudice in that space with someone with disability trying to get involved in mainstream activities, especially a lot of them are in the tourism providers as well. Our statistics, no pun intended. So I've really experienced try to discover myself, how I can maintain my passion into career, and to think about like how I come out being authentic with the people in my network. So I continued to study after high school, went to the University of Queensland, did my master's course in environmental science and management and sustainability. So there's a lot about outdoor stuff in there. That kept me happy and sane. So I found it, Nature Freedom, as at the beginning of my another life transition from graduating university into finding a job. So I thought of social entrepreneurship. So as a social entrepreneur, I did the opportunity working in social enterprise sector, and I became a trade by commercial in tourism business, and also with a not-for-profit. We support people with disability and young people from all walks of life go and enjoy activity socially. So it's all about that journey and experience, go conference engagement, forum to consultation, all that kind of stuff to do that. It's really helped me to progress, but about the future and also about networking. So just quickly what we do before I come and talk about inclusion. So what we do a lot of activity, have seen big growth in the past 12 months, and then it will double and triple the amount of the activity in the next 12 months. We got inclusive paddling is our first activity, started in August 2018. It's pretty much kayak and canoeing in that terminology, because you got a paddle on your hand, so that's what we call that. We're just launching a bushwalking program this year. It's another similar branding and the model of the business, including the values and inclusion. It's a popular one, and an adventure trip from a day to a multi-day adventure trip. And we have a few contract procurement with local government on running the community program for low cost, affordable, for especially young kids, school holiday, do some environmental craft, nature bushwalk workshop for them. And a volunteers program, this is very important. We could talk about that in a second, because it's part of our workforce. All right, so I understand we talk about inclusion a lot, but I would just give you a little bit of a tip. Think about what it really means clearly. So when you Google inclusion, there's a lot of different ways of saying how it is mean, but it's practically inclusion really mean how people decide what they want to get involved or what they need from. It could be a product or service in terms of experience. So inclusion does not mean you drive someone makes decision. It's about promoting them to make their independent decision. So it's really simple and straightforward, that we got no control of what people want to be a part of. So we actually more like feel open and welcome. That's why we become I decide what I want to do. So it can be any department of groups, like an activity. We got a lot of people with that disability still coming, even that look at the image and the value and the branding, it still talks about people with disability. It's because of the inclusion, it's set example from the community based on what the decision they make. So what we did the program, this is very, very important when you're delivering a tourism activity, can be from an activity on the islands where you are, or another kayak, canoe activity provider, and so on. It's about a focus on your individual. So when you're having a booking process with somebody want to book the activity, you should really check and pick up information, what accessibility requirements they are looking for. So, and that come in the style and in the communication as well. And then think about what you offer in return for that experience. So just making sure they are actually included with everyone else involved in that activity. So it's very, very important to talk about what the purpose, what are their needs, and then talk about how they can feel and comfortable in the environment. So it can be out there when you're outdoor, it's about light, smell, crowds, all that kind of stuff. You think about around that, the boundary. It is very, very important, especially from a living experience perspective. It's all about focusing on individual rather than the group people. So now we're going to the end of the presentation. We'll give you to think about where the journey come from and how we're going to solve. So the values is very, very critical. So it creates culture. We've got to celebrate diversity. Any day of the year, not a one day of the year, like International People Day Disability in December, for example. We celebrate it every day. So that's why how you share values. The integrated language social model in your business model is all about the context of disability from a social perspective rather than a health perspective. So we got like area, for example, with the hotel, they're all about what their workforce and people with disability coming in it. That's a social model perspective. How did the communication works for them to perform their roles and tasks? That we're doing exactly the same. How we can do it for participant, visitor, client, that what activity you're running for. And of course, co-design. That it's a big argument, especially in non-profit and social enterprise sector, about design thinking. So design thinking is a little bit different to co-design. Co-design, you collaborate with people. So especially you collaborate with someone, your client, the person with disability, to talk about design thinking. That equal design, or co-design, I mean. So that's how you can map out and what this look like. That's what comes to the next slide about the recruitment strategy. So we have a couple of people with disability on our team at the moment of around, we only have like two members out of 9 who have disability.
Yeah.
And then we could look at that growth, focusing on support that it needed for us participants. So one of them have autism spectrum who have passion in the graphic designing and marketing. She's just unemployed and she's really talented. Really focusing on like what they're perfect about being part of the volunteer team, also in being employed. So that's what I would say about time and space, what I feel, understanding their personal boundaries and their preferences, focus on the skills that they can build rather than they don't have. And don't look for someone else who is fully experienced. That's my regret. And that's the lesson I learned from last year when I started recruitment to join our team. I always look for somebody who's not very passionate. It's really totally opposite what I'm have now. So that's why you have someone with disabilities a bit more productive and passionate about what they do. That's very important. And also the values and passion for a whole branding and an image of your organization. So we have like people coming from unexpected when you are. It's how you're able to accommodate them if you get unexpected. Because tourism, both domestic and international level, is huge. It's massive. You already got a whole wide demographic within expecting it. So if you have a team member with disability, have a really big lived experience in that part, it will help a lot about our marketing, promotion strategy, how the operation work, how the activity coordinator are able to accommodate that person, how to understand the families, for their background. And that's what the whole scope of an inclusion look like. So it's 50-50 at the moment of people with disability and mental health and those without disability, and that we are. And we have, again, no control on people who want to book for our activity. We don't say who or whatnot. That's another lesson I learned out of regret in the past. I'm sorry, we only have people with disability. And I thought that's what the inclusion meant. Apparently, it's totally opposite. It's a segregation. So now I'm open up and they can see what it really means. I really hope you enjoyed this session. I'm really happy to answer your question and advice from my lived experience in Pacific. I'm looking forward to life after COVID and getting everyone back in traveling and getting out and about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I saw a few nods of heads there, particularly from Fiona. Now, we have reached an hour, and I don't think we've scratched the surface of this. You can see, hopefully, that we've taken 3 totally different areas, but they do link. They link so well together. So look, I don't want to drag this on, make it go on for an hour and a half. I'm grateful for what you've done, but would you agree that to take on we probably have to do as part 2, perhaps, to get into some of the details. But if you have questions or comments, then you can absolutely send them to us. Guys, I apologize for being slightly late. I really do. And I'll get in touch with you all individually, but I think this is certainly worth a second conversation at some point. Any final quick points before we go? Anything you think we could talk about more next time? I'll start with you, Fiona.
Gosh.
No? Okay. I thought I'd throw that to you. But it fascinates me how Lemon Tree Hotels is so far down that road, and we want to make that sort of thing. We're trying to be inclusive. We want to make companies that have never thought about this. We don't want to intimidate them, but look at what's possible. And that's where you guys and Matthew have an interest, I'm sure, in what you do. Anyway, I won't put you on the spot for comments. I understand that. So let's end it there. And thank you for coming. Sorry we started 10 minutes late, and we'll see you again hopefully soon. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.